A total solar eclipse happens when the moon interposes itself precisely between the Earth and the Sun, casting a shadow on the surface of the Earth that is, at its narrow tip, no wider than a few hundred miles. People travel enormous distances to stand in that shadow. They gather in fields and on rooftops and at the edges of cliffs, and they look up, and for a few minutes, 2, perhaps 3, sometimes less, the familiar architecture of the sky is rearranged. The sun becomes a ring of fire around a disk of nothing. The temperature drops. Birds go silent. Stars that have no business appearing at that hour suddenly do. And then it passes, and the light returns, and the world reassembles itself, and the people who gathered say, "Extraordinary, remarkable." I felt for a moment that the rules had been suspended. Vincent Hale has attended one eclipse in his life and found it deeply unsettling. He is not here for the eclipse. He is here because a man he was supposed to meet is not answering his phone, and the last known record of that man's location places him on the Eclipse Railway's overnight mountain run, a service named, with a showman's instinct for spectacle, to coincide with tonight's astronomical event. Hale boards the train because the man he is looking for boarded the train, and because 31 years of investigative work has taught him that following a thread into the dark is almost always preferable to standing in the light and wondering. The Eclipse Railway operates a single route, the Mountain Division, 340 kilometers of high-altitude track, threading through passes and over viaducts and through tunnels that were blasted through granite in the 1880s and are still used because no one has found a better path. The route takes 8 hours in ordinary conditions. Tonight, the conditions are not ordinary. A significant thunderstorm system is building over the eastern ranges, visible already as a bruise on the horizon, underlit by internal lightning that has not yet reached the ground. Meteorological services have issued advisories. The Eclipse Railway has not canceled its service. The Eclipse Railway has, in fact, sold every ticket. Vincent Hale is 67 years old and was, for most of his adult life, an investigator for a governmental body that no longer exists under the name he knew it by. He has a bad knee, excellent eyesight, and the specific quality of attention that develops in people who have spent decades in rooms where things were being deliberately obscured. A quality that is not suspicion exactly, but something more like the readiness for suspicion, permanently loaded but not yet aimed. He takes his seat in the first-class carriage. He orders nothing. He looks at the other passengers. There is a man 2 tables forward who is the specific variety of frightened that Hale associates with a certain kind of powerful person encountering, for the first time, a situation that power cannot resolve. Not young, mid-50s, Hale estimates, with the physiognomy of someone who has spent years being deferred to, the set of the jaw, the particular ownership of space, the habit of sitting at a slight angle to the room as though always on the verge of leaving it for somewhere better. But the hands, which are pressed flat on the table, are doing something the face has been trained not to do. They are trembling. Tech executive, Hale decides. The species is recognizable. He files it under man with information he wishes he did not have. The translator is in the dining carriage when Hale passes through. She is small, contained, with the quality of someone whose default mode is observation and whose visibility is something she manages with considerable intent. She is writing in a notebook with a pen that moves too quickly for what she appears to be transcribing. From the window outside, there is only darkening mountain and the first suggestions of cloud, and what she is actually writing. Hale notes, in the 3 seconds he has before she registers his glance and adjusts, is not in any alphabet he recognizes immediately. Not Cyrillic, not Arabic. Something else, or something compound, a personal cipher perhaps, or a notation system. The kind of writing that turns looking into recording. She meets his eye as he passes. She does not look away first, neither does he. It is, as these small encounters go, a draw. The guard's name is Leo. His badge confirms it, and so does his manner. A man named Leo, who works as a guard on an overnight mountain train in building weather, has arrived at something close to his natural habitat. He is large, weathered, with the specific tiredness of someone who has been doing a physically demanding job for many years and has achieved, through that sustained effort, a kind of qualified peace with it. He checks Hale's ticket with the efficiency of someone who has checked 10,000 tickets and finds each one neither more nor less interesting than the last. But when his eyes move briefly to the window, to the bruised horizon, to the lightning that is now more frequent, something tightens briefly in his expression. Hale knows that look. He has worn it himself. It is the look of a person who knows something is coming and has decided, for reasons that will become clear later, to say nothing about it yet. The steward who brings Hale a glass of water he did not order speaks with an accent that Hale cannot place in under 30 seconds, which is unusual. In 31 years of professional work, he has become quite good at placing accents. This one has the quality of something assembled from multiple sources, or perhaps of something very old, a regional pattern that has been overlaid by travel or training to the point where its origins are deeply submerged. He is young and friendly, and the friendliness is genuine, which makes it, in Hale's experience, neither more nor less trustworthy than friendliness that is performed. The steward says, "Beautiful night for an eclipse." Hale looks at the bruised sky. He says, "Is it?" The executive's name Hale has established from a careful reading of the passengers boarding ahead of him at the terminus is Caldwell. He exists, or existed, as Hale is about to understand, in the dining carriage, with the quality of someone who has chosen a public space precisely because they believe that nothing can happen to them in a public space. This is a mistake that a certain kind of person makes. Public spaces have witnesses. Witnesses can be managed. What Caldwell does not understand, sitting in the dining carriage with his flat hands and his trembling that his face is working very hard not to acknowledge, is that the witnesses on the Eclipse Railway tonight may not be as straightforwardly reliable as he is assuming. Hale takes a seat at the bar end of the dining carriage. He orders a coffee he will not drink. He watches Caldwell. At 22:41, Caldwell is there. His reflection catches in the carriage window between lightning flashes. A man at a table, upright, hands flat. A man who is waiting for something he has not yet decided how to receive. At 22:43, the dining carriage lights dip for approximately 4 seconds. The dip is not a flicker. It is not the random stuttering of a power fault. It has the quality of an intention, a long, considered reduction, as though whatever manages the train's electrical system has decided to briefly withhold the ordinary elimination in favor of something else. In those 4 seconds, the carriage is lit only by the lightning outside, which comes in pulses, which means the carriage strobes between darkness and sudden white clarity, and in the sudden white clarity of the last flash before the lights return, Caldwell's seat is empty. His glass is still on the table. His jacket is still draped over the chair back. His phone screen down, a precaution that already told Hale something is still beside his glass. He is not there. Hale says to the couple at the adjacent table, "The man who was sitting there, did you see where he went?" The couple look at Caldwell's empty table, then at each other, then with the mild and genuine puzzlement of people who have no reason to dissemble, at Hale. "No one's been sitting there," the woman says, "not this evening." Her husband nods, confirming, "Empty since we boarded." Hale looks at the jacket on the chair, the glass with its water ring beneath it, the phone screen down. He has been lied to by people who were very good at it. The couple at the adjacent table are not lying. He knows what lying looks like when it is done well and when it is done badly, and what it looks like when it is not done at all, when a person simply reports what they believe is true, without artifice, without the microsecond recalibration of the face that concealment requires. These two people genuinely believe that the seat across from them has been empty all evening. This is, in some ways, worse than if they had been lying. The note is on the floor just inside his cabin door, not slipped under with the casualness of an afterthought, positioned, centered on the small floor mat as though placed by someone with the patience to ensure it would be seen. Folded once, horizontally, Hale picks it up with the care of someone who knows it will yield nothing forensically, but who maintains the habit anyway, because habits that have kept you alive for 31 years are not casually discarded. He unfolds it. Darkness reveals what light conceals. He reads it twice. He considers its grammar, not a threat, not a warning in the conventional sense, something more like an instruction. Or a philosophy, the kind of sentence that functions as a key if you can determine the lock it opens. He looks up from the note. Through the cabin's small window, the mountain is very close, pressed against the glass by the train's trajectory through a narrow pass, and in a flash of the storm's lightning, Hale sees, carved into the granite face perhaps 4 meters from the window, something that is either a natural formation or a symbol, angular, deliberate-looking, repeated 3 times in descending size, and then the pass opens, and the mountain falls away, and the symbol, if it was a symbol, is gone. He folds the note. He puts it in his breast pocket. He goes back to the dining carriage. He needs to talk to the translator. Her name is Mara. She gives it without being asked, which tells Hale she has decided he is useful, and she has decided this, he estimates, roughly 40 minutes before he sought her out. She is 38, she says, which Hale believes, and a commercial translator by practice, which Hale believes less immediately, but revises upward after she explains, without prompting, that commercial translation work for certain categories of client requires documentation methods that would be inadvisable in conventional script. The notebook cipher, in other words, is professional hygiene, not concealment. He shows her the note. She reads it. She does not react to its content, or rather, she reacts to it with a careful neutrality that is itself a reaction. She turns it over. She examines the paper's edge. She holds it at an angle to the carriage's overhead light. "There are 3 more of these," she says, not a question. "How do you know that?" "Because I've found 2 others." She opens her notebook to a page near the back. 2 slips of paper are pressed there, both folded once, both in the same hand as Hale's note. The second note, found tucked under the edge of the dining car's service counter, "The veil thins at the appointed hour." The third, pushed through the ventilation grill of the translator's own cabin, "The instrument requires a witness." Hale lays his note beside the other 2. 3 statements. Not a sequence, not obviously a code, more like the fragments of a doctrine or the working notes of something that thinks in pronouncements rather than propositions. Leo, the guard, arrives at the cabin door with the timing of a man who has been deciding whether to come and just resolved the decision. His face, which Hale has been reading as weary professionalism since the ticket check at boarding, has shifted into something more specific. There is the look of a person who has been carrying a piece of information at arm's length, holding it away from themselves as long as possible, and who has now been confronted with circumstances that make that distance untenable. "Carriage 7, he says. "You need to see Carriage 7. Carriage 7 is not on the passenger manifest. This is the first thing Leo says as they walk the length of the train toward it, raising his voice against the thunder. It is listed in the railway's operational documents. He has seen those documents, has been a guard on the Eclipse Railway for 9 years, and has consequently seen a great many things that the operational documents describe as a monitoring carriage, decommissioned, kept on the formation for structural continuity purposes. He has never opened the door to Carriage 7. He has tried on 3 separate occasions over 9 years and found the door sealed in a way that a standard guard's key does not address. He has asked about it twice and received answers both times that were thorough and reasonable, and that he has never fully believed. Tonight, he says, the door to Carriage 7 is open. The smell comes before the carriage does. Ozone, again, the same electrical before the strike smell that Hale has learned to associate across multiple investigations with the specific aftermath of something energy-intensive occurring in an enclosed space. And something else beneath it, carbon, faint, the ghost of something burned. The floor of carriage 7, just inside the door, holds a scorch pattern that Hale crouches to examine with the attention he gives to all significant evidence. It is not a simple char, it is a geometry, concentric arcs, 2 of them centered on a point in the middle of the floor, the inner arc no more than 30 centimeters in diameter, and the outer perhaps a meter 20. Between the arcs, the floor surface has not burned but changed. Its color has shifted from the dark gray of the carriage's industrial composite to something lighter, more iridescent, the way a surface looks when extreme heat has altered its molecular structure rather than simply scorching it. And at the eastern edge of the outer arc, blood, the same configuration as all the blood that turns up in situations like this. Not the blood of injury in the conventional sense, not sprayed or pooled, but pressed. A handprint, partial, 4 fingers and the outer edge of a palm, the blood already darkened to the color of old rust. Mara photographs the scorch marks with a compact camera she produces from an inside pocket. Her movements are economical and without drama. Leo stands at the carriage door with the expression of a man performing a duty he would prefer not to be performing, but from which his sense of responsibility will not permit him to withdraw. Hale finds the 4th note under the lip of the scorch's outer arc. It is placed with an exactness that suggests whoever placed it knew precisely where Hale would crouch. The instrument has tasted refusal. It will not offer again.
He stands. He looks at the other 2. He says very quietly, "Somewhere on this train there is a mechanism, something built or installed or..." He stops, chooses a word more carefully, "something operational, and it is processing passengers." Leo says, "There's a panel." Hale looks at him. "At the rear of this carriage. I've always noticed it. Different texture from the walls. I thought it was a maintenance access." He pauses. "It's glowing." There is a distinction that Hale learned early in his career and has never found reason to revise. There is the unknown, which can be addressed by information, and there is the unknowable, which cannot be addressed at all and must instead be confronted directly with whatever tools you have on hand. The panel at the rear of carriage 7 presents itself, initially, as the former. It is a door, or a door equivalent. It glows. These are facts. Facts have explanations. He proceeds on this basis and will continue to proceed on it for as long as proceeding is possible. The panel has no handle, no keypad, no visible locking mechanism. Its surface is warm. Not the warmth of electrical equipment, not the warmth of friction or compression, but the warmth of something that has been generating its own heat from within for a very long time, the way a body generates heat, the low and constant thermal evidence of ongoing process. Hale presses his palm to it the way he would press his palm to a door, to feel whether there is fire on the other side. The panel opens. The space beyond the panel is not physically possible given the train's external dimensions. This is the first thing that is wrong, and it is wrong in a way that Hale does not immediately catalog, because his mind, trained across decades to address what is in front of it before addressing what is impossible about it, is occupied with the space's contents. The walls are alive with symbols. Not printed, not carved, not projected moving across the surface of the walls the way water moves across a flat surface, driven by something, purposeful, the symbols forming and dissolving and reforming in configurations that shift just at the speed at which meaning might cohere and then don't, that tease the pattern recognition in the human brain with the suggestion of grammar and then withdraw it.
Hale has hewn rooms where information was presented in deliberately overwhelming quantities in order to prevent any of it from being absorbed. This is something different from that. The symbols are not overwhelming. They are patient. They present themselves at the pace of something that has been doing this for a long time and expects to continue. In the center of the room, a device. Not a machine in the engineering sense, not an assembly of components whose purposes can be separately identified, a thing that has been made, or that has arrived at its current form through a process Hale cannot immediately characterize, that stands roughly man-height and radiates the same warm phosphorescence as the panel outside. Its surface is continuous, no seams, no apertures, no moving parts. From somewhere inside it, or from somewhere that uses it as a medium, a voice. The voice does not speak in a language, or rather, it speaks in the structure that underlies languages, in the grammar of meaning itself. Pre-lexical, pre-cultural, the layer of communication that every human being accesses before they reach for words. Hale understands it the way he understands, upon waking, that he has been dreaming something significant, even before the dream's content becomes retrievable.
What the voice communicates, assembled afterward into language because the mind insists on it. The veil is thinning, the appointed hour approaches. Those who have been collected are being prepared. Restoration of the veil requires a willing act of closure. Failure to restore the veil will result in permanent aperture. Permanent aperture will permit what waits beyond the veil to pass through. What waits beyond the veil is not hostile. It is hungry in the way that vacuums are hungry, without intent, without malice, simply the function of pressure differential. It will consume what is available to it. The train and everyone on it are what is available to it. Hale says, "Where are the passengers?" The device shows him. On the wall to Hale's left, a section of the symbol flow stills, and in the stillness, a window of sorts, not glass, not screen, something that simply functions as a surface of visibility reveals a space. Blue light, the specific blue-white of something between states, and in the blue light, people, standing, still, arranged at intervals with the geometry of things that have been placed rather than things that have arrived under their own direction. Caldwell is there, the tech executive with his flat hands and his specific fear. He stands among the others with his arms at his sides and his face carrying the expression that Hale saw telegraphed in the trembling of his hands in the dining carriage. The expression of a man who has been confronted with something that power cannot resolve, but settled now, as though the confrontation is over, and what remains is whatever comes after the realization that you were right to be afraid. They are not in distress. They are not unconscious. They are there, in that blue space, with the patient quality of people waiting for something. What they are waiting for, Hale does not yet know. Mara, beside him, says, "The eclipse." He looks at her.
Totality in... She checks her watch. 11 minutes. If the voice is describing a threshold event, if the appointed hour is the eclipse's peak, then whatever this system is, it was designed around that timing. She looks at the device. Or the eclipse was designed around it. I can't determine which. Leo says from the panel entrance, and there is something in his voice that makes both Hale and Mara kern. Something's coming through the train. The shadows detach from the walls of carriage 7, the way shadows detach when the light source that creates them is removed, except the light in carriage 7 has not changed. The shadows simply decide, or are decided, to no longer be attached to the surfaces that generate them. They become objects rather than properties. Shapes of approximate human proportion, the suggestion of standing figures, occupying space with the patient attention of things that have been waiting for this hour specifically. They do not approach Hale or Mara or Leo. They face the device. They are waiting for the eclipse. Total solar eclipse totality, 2 minutes and 17 seconds. This is the window that everything on the Eclipse Railway has been oriented toward, the designed moment, the appointed hour, the junction between the veil thinning and the veil breaking. Hale stands in the core, and he looks at the device, and he makes the calculation he has been making since the dining carriage, since the note on his cabin floor, since the scorch marks and the blood, and the symbols on these walls that have been patient and rotating and waiting for him to decide. The device requires a willing act of closure, a conscious choice, not a physical interaction, not a button, not a code, not the mechanical vocabulary of a system that can be operated. The voice made this clear, and Hale's understanding of it was precise, willing. The distinction is not technical, the distinction is moral.
He can close the system. He can restore the veil. The passengers in the blue space, Caldwell, the others, however many others the device has collected across however many runs the Eclipse Railway has made across however many years, will be returned. The aperture will close. Whatever waits beyond it, the pressure differential, the hunger without intent, will remain on its side. Or he can choose nothing. He can wait the 2 minutes and 17 seconds out, and the eclipse will pass, and the veil will break, and the train will pass through into whatever permanent aperture means. The returned passengers arrive before he has decided. They come through the walls of Carriage 7, not through the panel, not through any visible opening, through the walls themselves, as though the wall's solidity has become, in the eclipse's darkness, a matter of preference rather than physics. They walk with the perfect unison of things that have been arranged, that have not yet relearned the small, purposeless variability of individual movement. Their eyes carry the blue-white of the space they have come from, each iris luminous, the specific light of the device's core, the light of the threshold between states. They do not speak. They do not need to speak. Their presence communicates with the same pre-lexical clarity as the device's voice. They are here. They have been here. They know what this space is, and what hour this is, and what is required. Caldwell stops in front of Hale. The man who was trembling over his flat hands in the dining carriage stands in the core's light and looks at Hale with eyes that are glowing and patient and empty of the specific fear that had been in them before. Not empty in the way of a person from whom something has been taken, empty in the way of a person who has put something down. He says, in a voice that carries the resonance of the blue space beneath it like an overtone, "I came because I owed it. The instrument collected what I would not give willingly." A pause. "Do not owe it. Give." Mara stands at Hale's left, Leo at his right. Neither speaks. The shadows on the walls have not moved. The device pulses with a frequency that Hale feels in his sternum and in his back teeth, and in the old wound in his left knee, a sensation that is not pain, but is the body's way of registering the presence of something that operates at frequencies the body was not designed to process. 31 years of investigation, the files that were closed before he could finish them, the names on the lists that stopped being names before he could account for them, the man he came to find, whose last known location placed him on the Eclipse Railway, whose phone had stopped answering 3 days ago, whose absence from his ordinary life had the specific shape of a disappearance that Hale had been unable, until tonight, to explain. He looks at the gathered passengers. He does not see the man he came to find. He will not find him on this train.
The question the device is asking is not, he understands now, whether he will act. The question is whether he will act from fear of the aperture or from something else. The distinction matters to the system in a way he cannot fully articulate, but can fully feel the way a lock responds differently to a key that fits and a key that is forced. The mechanism is not physical, it is intentional, and intention has a texture that whatever built this device can apparently read. Hale thinks of the note, "Darkness reveals what light conceals." He has spent his career in light, in documents, in evidence, in the visible record of what people did and how they tried to hide it. He has been very good at it. He is standing in the dark now, the eclipse dark, the mountain dark, the dark of a space that has been here, patient and humming. Longer than the train that carries it, and he understands, with the clarity that the dark provides when you stop fighting it, that the thing the light has been concealing is not the evidence. The thing the light conceals is the debt, his own. He presses his hand to the device, not the way he pressed his palm to the panel outside, not with the pragmatic caution of a man testing a door for fire, with the specific intention of a person who has spent a long time not paying something and has now decided to pay it. He does not know precisely what the payment is. He knows that the device does. He extends, without words, without formulation, the willingness to have it named. The device receives this. The returned passengers, Caldwell and the others, exhale together, a sound like wind through a pass, and the blue light in their eyes dims from luminous to ordinary. Their unison breaks. They become individuals again, blinking, shifting their weight, looking at their own hands with the recalibrating expression of people who have been somewhere and are now here, and are reassembling the distinction between the two. The shadows on the walls retract, not dramatically, not extinguished. They simply return to being shadows, properties of light sources, attached to the surfaces they belong to, no longer separate things. The device's glow begins, very slowly, to diminish. Leo is the first to speak. He says, "The driver." He means the driver exists, or has been restored, or has returned from wherever the Eclipse Railway goes when it goes. He means that the train, which has been moving through the mountain division on its original route at its original speed without apparent intervention for the past several hours, is now making the sounds of a train that has a driver. Adjustments, braking calculations, the small human imprecisions of a person at a throttle. Mara closes her notebook. She uncaps her pen, recaps it, pockets it. She does not look at Hale for a long moment, and when she does, her expression is the one that people wear when they have witnessed something that has reorganized their working model of the world and are in the process of deciding how to document it. "Who built it?" she asks. "I don't know," Hale says. "What was the debt?" He considers this with the honesty that the device has apparently extracted from him, and which, he finds, has not departed with the darkness. 31 years of closing the wrong cases, he says, knowing which ones they were and closing them anyway. The returned passengers are confused and quiet in the ordinary way of people who have been somewhere difficult and are not yet ready to describe it. Caldwell sits in a carriage seat with his hands in his lap, not flat, not trembling, just resting, and looks at the returning light on the mountains with the expression of someone who has put something down and found that his hands, without it, do not know their default position. He will figure it out. The Eclipse Railway descends from the mountain passes as the eclipse passes fully, and the storm's remaining energy disperses into ordinary rain. The device in Carriage 7 is quiet. The panel is closed and shows no phosphorescence. The symbols on the walls are still. The scorch marks on the floor remain evidence of something that cannot be explained in the operational documentation, that will be noted in Leo's incident report and referred upward through channels that will find no satisfactory category for it, and will eventually file it under the only category available to institutions confronted with the unknowable: anomalous. Hale finds the man he came to find not on the train, at the terminus on the far platform, standing in the rain of the eclipse aftermath, with the look of someone who has arrived from a considerable distance and cannot account for the journey. He knows Hale's face. He says nothing for a long time. Then he says, "How long?" Hale thinks about the device, about the blue space, about what Caldwell said, "I came because I owed it," about the man standing in the rain who went looking for something and found something else and has been in the space between those two things for however long the device required. "Long enough," Hale says. The Eclipse Railway sits at the terminus in the aftermath of rain, its dark lacquered carriages catching the first pale light of morning on the peaks. Carriage 7 shows nothing from the outside that distinguishes it from the other carriages. It is the correct width, the correct length, positioned correctly in the formation. There is no visible panel. There is no visible inscription. There is no eclipse. The moon has moved on. But the mountains hold their granite faces to the lightening sky, and in one of those faces, at a height that could not have been reached by human hands, not in any era, the same angular symbol that Hale glimpsed from his cabin window is carved in descending repetitions into the rock. Not carved recently, carved in the way that things are carved when the carving is not the point, but the permanence is. The permanence is, this has been here before the railway, before the passes, before the roads. The system that runs through Carriage 7 and the device, and the blue-lit space between states, has been here waiting for its appointed hour, since before there was a word for waiting. The Eclipse Railway will run again. The next eclipse is in 8 months. The tickets are already sold.